What's happening, y'all? It's Soren Baker here on Unique Access Entertainment. As always, please hit that subscribe button. It's right down there and it's free. That enables us to keep coming to y'all as often as possible with as many interviews as possible. So please hit that subscribe button, like our content, share it, talk about it, be about it, each one, teach one. And we appreciate your support in getting us this far. And also a special thanks to those who have joined us as members. We appreciate that support because that helps us, you know, pay our editors, pay me a little bit, and do all kinds of stuff. So if you guys could hit us with that membership, that really helps the cause and enables us to get to that next level in the game. We're trying to get to that #1 spot. So thank you for everyone that's helped us along our journey. Speaking of journeys, we have the honor and the privilege of being joined by Baldwin Sykes today. Thank you for coming through, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone.
Yes, so Baldwin is a actor and an amazing person in general, which is why I wanted to get him on here. And thank you to our great mutual friend, Shawnee Johnson, who got us linked us up together. But Baldwin, many people will probably recognize him or doing a double take now. He portrayed Monster in Boyz in the Hood. He was in South Central, a few other things, which we're all going to get to. But before we get to all that, since you grew up in LA, Southern California, Compton, I wanted you to get, for you growing up in Compton and then getting to go to USC to study, how did that end up happening for you?
I always laugh at that one because it's not something I could have scripted, but I'm grateful for it every day. As you stated, I'm born and raised in Compton, California. Grew up playing sports. I was okay. Always wanted to, try and play basketball or football, things of that nature. And that led me to a community college, which was Cerritos Community College. I've always been around the arts, always been around performing. So I took some theater classes there and I was like, that'll be my major. And I'll still, pursue sports. At the same time, I pursued the speech and debate team. They called it forensics, where you can do a dramatic interpretation, poetry, prose, and turf, a lot like acting. And so I was like to the point where I was like later for sports because I was traveling quite a bit through the forensics all over the country. We had speech and debate tournaments, and I was blessed with the fortune of winning a lot of those tournaments. And that is what gave me the opportunity to a full scholarship at USC. And so that's kind of how that happened. Can't make that up.
Yeah, that's amazing. Congratulations. And as that stuff was happening, growing up in Compton in the 80s and stuff, how were you balancing, or how did you navigate pursuing the intellectual side of things with avoiding the gang stuff and, being a student?
Great question. Great question. Well, I was already in a gang, and let me explain that. I'm the youngest of 7 children. Mom and dad were there as well. And we even had a dog. So you're looking at a family of 10. That was my gang. So I had no need to join a gang. A lot of my friends that I grew up with, they felt joining a gang was important because they didn't have that family unit intact like I did. They'll be raised by a mom that's working 3 jobs, a grandparent, even an uncle or brother. They didn't have that unit that I had. And so unfortunately, that's one of the allures to young people joining the gangs. They're looking, when they join the gangs, they're looking for the family that isn't either at home or that they've never had. And so with that being said, never needed to join a gang. I was recruited on several occasions, but I would always say, hey man, you haven't met my pop. He knocked me out, man. I can't do that type of stuff. And then it's, oh, you're a square or you're a geek, and I would just agree with it and keep it pushing because you didn't question when you were called certain things in the hood, you just rolled with it.
Yeah. And was that how did you learn that lesson of being willing to say that instead of getting into a confrontation, which obviously could have gone the wrong way? How did you navigate and learn that part of the process?
I have 4 older brothers. I stand before you at this time, 6'1", 250. I'm the smallest in my family. So they were big dudes, but to see them, how they moved and maneuvered in the hood made me understand it's not about being tough or hard or looking to take that fight. It was a matter of maneuvering and moving the way you could survive. So I watched them, and then I watched individuals that, wanted to be the tough guy and would, get called names, and then they would pop back off. And next thing you know, somebody's getting beat up or stomped out or worse. And I was like, hey man, that's not working for me. I didn't sign up for that. That's not why I'm here.
Right. And then I think it's also important with speech and debate and forensics and with traveling to kind of explain to people at the time. For somebody, did you travel a lot as a kid with a family or not? Because you had so many brothers and sisters, it obviously would have been expensive. But once you started traveling around the region or around the country, how did that change your perspective on what was happening in Compton?
That's another great question, man. You're on a roll. I love it. So with me being the youngest of 7, we pile into a station wagon. And my dad, may he rest in power and peace, his mom lived up in Oroville, California, which is in northern Cal, like Butte County. It's about an hour outside of Sacramento. And so it reminded me of one of those Mayberry R.F.D. towns, a lot of lakes and fishing. You didn't have the crime then that you had in Oroville that you had in Compton. So we load up in there every summer to see my grandparents. And then when my parents left, they actually would leave myself and my other brother, who's 4 years older than me. They would leave us there for a month or two because they wanted us to be exposed to something outside of Compton. They always said to me, my mom and my dad, be aware of the things that are outside of the 5 blocks that you grew up around or in your community. So that kind of prepared me going up north. A lot of fishing and skipping rocks off of the lakes or the river or wherever we were fishing, creek. And then also their weather was a little different. They're farther from the equator, a lot cooler up there. So I just was like, okay, it's a little different. It's 8 hours away, but it felt like a world of difference. And so that prepared me because there were different type of people. There were more races there, and a lot more of those races there than in Compton. And so that prepared me as well. So when I started traveling at USC, it just became a little bigger. Like, okay, Chicago, oh my goodness. Like, man, it really is the Windy City. Deep dish pizza, what's that? I'm eating that and I'm like, wow, this stuff reminds me of pie. Like, I was just naive in a lot of ways. I saw snow for the first time in my life in college. I was in Cedar City, Utah. We were at Southern Utah State for a debate tournament, and the snow started coming down. And I'm like, well, what do I do? And they're like, well, it's like rain. You put up an umbrella or you try to avoid it. And I slipped and fell on black ice. Didn't know what black ice was. So it was a lot of learning for me to do. When I got to college and did more traveling and went to different states.
Got it. And with that, as you look back, how pivotal do you think, even before you got to USC, just going to visit your family, what perspective and opportunities do you think that afforded you that some people, because I know people that grew up in South Central or in Compton that sadly had never been to the beach till they were teenagers or something, even though it's 6-7 miles away. And I know one of my friends that I went to high school with, he taught on the south side of Chicago. And he told me 30-40 blocks away, some of the kids there had never been downtown Chicago. So like for you, I'm sure you knew some of those kids. Like how was your perspective, your conversation, your vocabulary, your mindset different from those kids that focused on those 5 blocks?
Again, I didn't have an excuse, Soren, because I had mom and dad. And then with 6 older siblings, man, I couldn't get away with anything.
Well, no, I'm saying the conversation compared to the other kids that you saw or you went to school with or that you were around.
Oh, there was a world of difference because, I was surrounded again by adults that would kind of bring me up to speed on what to expect. as opposed to a kid that didn't have that support. So, and it's interesting you mentioned about a kid not even going to the beach, even though being 6 or 7 miles away. I've worked with 2 in my years as a case manager that never even went to the mall. That one blew me away. Like, we take the bus to the mall to try to meet girls or get away. I had 2 of them that they'd never even been to the mall. So going back to, again, the opportunities I got was more so being surrounded by it and given the guidance, just, hey, this is what you expect, you know, when you go here, or if you go here, that type of thing. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah. And I think too, this is a testament to your parents being able to navigate that life, as well as, you know, obviously I didn't grow up in Compton, but reading about it and understanding from talking to people that did and being there several times myself, just the evolution of the city and what was happening with gangs and crack and all the different stuff that was happening. What was your parents, did they ever discuss, or later in life, did they ever talk to you about wanting to move, or why they didn't move, or had they tried to move? Like, what was?
Excellent question. So my mom and dad are originally from Louisiana. And so they migrated from the South over to California, which presented more opportunities in every way. So a lot of it was, my dad he worked at Rockwell, which today is Boeing. So he was in that industry. My mom was a postal worker, but they may not have been afforded those opportunities if they remained in Louisiana. That was why when my dad exited the military and he served in the Korean War, he said, you know, honey, I want you to meet me in California. At that time, the only child they had was my oldest brother. So they were on child 1 of 7. And so they migrated to Compton. And during those days, it was 1966. I remember because we have a flagpole there that has a date on it. 1966, they migrated. We were the second African-American family in Compton during that time. For those who don't know, Compton was a high-functioning, upper middle class community during that era.
And white.
And so
almost exclusively white too.
Almost exclusively white, Soren. You're spot on. And on top of that, the thing that my parents pointed out, and I laugh about it, is there were no gates. We didn't have front gates. There was no need for front gates. We all had just a yard of grass and a block. And it wasn't a block where people were claiming and saying, this is my set, that set. You just lived on that block. And so you lived on that block. We were the second African-American family there. A few other African-American families followed, and that led to the flight that is often spoke of. You know, hey, we got to move out of the neighborhood. There's too many African-Americans moving in. So I think they called it white flight. And they kind of exited our community for that reason. Yeah.
Okay. So then when you're getting to go to USC, what was that like academically and socially for you?
It was challenging in some ways. So when I was in Compton, as I shared, I studied at Cerritos Community College. So I was allowed to still stay at home with my folks in Compton. When I was there, as I was quite busy, I was staying busy by design to stay out of trouble. But I had to come home and eat, sleep, shower, and study. And I would literally study to the helicopters. So when you see Boyz n the Hood or South Central movies that show someone studying and the lights are shining through windows and they're studying, that was me. I was that kid, studying to the light of the helicopters, listening to the 808 bass or the woofers, the music people played out front, and it actually would motivate me to just study. So that part was cool. So then I get the scholarship to USC and I move on the dorms. Now, when I first pulled up in front of USC, I was like, oh, I'm at home. This is the hood. I parked. There was other homies hanging out, you know, during that thing. And I spoke, hey, how y'all doing? And they spoke back. What's up, man? You know, oh, you go to school there? Yeah, you play ball? No, I'm just a student. You know, but I knew what language to speak with them because I grew up in the same type of environment, which, interesting enough, I came out, that was my first day of school, at USC, I came out to my car and I noticed that most of the cars that were parked where I was parked had their windows broken out and stereo stolen. My car was untouched. And I'd like to think it was the fact that I acknowledged them and respected them by just speaking and having a conversation with them. But it made me feel at home. So that was kind of how it was a little easier in the community. Man, I got on campus and it was like I was in another country. Very quiet, peaceful, bells. One of my favorite spots to study was in front of Tommy Trojan at a water fountain because I like the soothing water and I like being able to just concentrate. So then I move into my dorm room and I had problems studying because I no longer had the helicopter noise, the lights, the booming from the woofers. I had to adjust. It was too quiet. I was like, man, I got to drive home to study because I can't focus because this isn't the way that I'm accustomed to study. Eventually, I learned to adjust, but that's where it was tough. It was a little bit of a culture shock, a little bit of a change for me, where I had to acclimate.
Yeah. And that being said, what was your relationship with rap at the time? Did you listen to a lot of it? Did you like it? Did you not?
I loved it, man. I loved it because, originally when I first heard rap, it was the Sugar Hill Gang. Okay. So it was fun rap and, it told a story, and it would, you had different styles of rap. You had the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, you had different rap. And I was really into it. I was like, I'm going to listen to all of it and kind of decide who's the best. In my community was a DJ named DJ Spade. I grew up on 151st and Central. Spade, may he rest in peace, grew up on 156th Street and Central, right in front of the Compton Airport. And then if you go across the medium on Central to a neighborhood that was to my, I guess it would be the east of where I live, you had DJ Toddy T. And Toddy T and I went to middle school together. And I knew Toddy T. And then if you go a little further east was DJ Yella's neighborhood. Antoine Carabee is Yella's real name. He was the Compton High School. He was the leader of our band. He was like our marching band leader. Very talented guy. Y'all know him as DJ Yella in NWA. So there's a history with me in rap, and I've always loved it, and I still listen to it. It's kind of my CNN into the neighborhood to know what's still going on. For some rappers that still give us that.
Yeah, and of course, Toddy T with Batterram was a huge song. So knowing him growing up or whatever, then when you heard that song, like, what was your reaction?
A sense of pride, like, hey, I know him. When I first heard the song, I knew who DJ Spade was, but I was like, who's Toddy T? And then when they said his real name and oh man, yeah, I know him. And I just saw him, because I think I was maybe a year older than Toddy T. Spade was a year older than me, but I knew these guys. Everyone was kind of into the little pop locking era and the rap era, and that was us. We were doing it. Again, it was another form to use to stay out of trouble and use your talent. And in their case, they turned that talent into, something that they can earn a living at doing. So.
Yeah, yes, they did. And icons in the game for sure, and helped lay the foundation for what was to come musically.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV Back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national
gangbang rappers.
The history of gangster rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The history of gangster rap in stores now.